Hello my fellow nerds, my name is Avery and today is the 2nd of October, aka Preptober, and today we are going to be talking about creating the perfect plot for your novel. Not just any plot, but a plot that you are madly, deeply, passionately in love with, one that you will be desperate to share with the world and will keep you hooked and motivated to achieve that 50,000 word NaNoWriMo goal. First thing we're going to do is jump over to the NaNoWriMo website and check out what resources they have for creating a plot. There's an exercise called Sparking an Idea, a couple of plot generators, and an Adoption Society forum. I like that one. That's where if somebody has an idea for a novel that they think is really interesting, but they're working on something else, or they're just too busy to write it, so they just put the idea on the forums and it's up for grabs for anybody who's having trouble coming up with a plot of their own. Now, I'll be completely honest, I don't really recommend these random plot generators. I mean, they're fine for, kids who are working on a school project or something, but these are not tools that are going to give you a plot to be passionate about. They're just going to give you something completely random and not catered to your interests at all. For example, let's use one of the NaNoWriMo plot generators and see what it comes up with. Your character is old, open-minded, and has many interests. The story begins in an airport. A young heiress escapes a stifling existence. The theme is stubbornness. Okay, so an old lady goes on holiday, and at the airport she meets a stubborn runaway heiress who is trying to escape from her strict family. And the two of them run off together and have an awesome world tour where the old lady teaches the young heiress valuable life lessons, and they all live happily ever after, except for the old lady who tragically dies at the end. And then the heiress is left absolutely broken-hearted and cries at her funeral and then decides to spend the rest of her life doing really amazing things in memory of the old lady who inspired her so much. Actually, forget everything I said, this story's amazing, plot generator works. But if you'd rather come up with a plot of your own, I recommend crafting a plot that is going to be perfect for you specifically, and the only person who can find that plot is you. Maybe you already have a plot in mind, but that story is losing the magic it used to have, and you need to find just that little spark that will make you fall in love with it all over again. Either way, I am here to help. So, how do you find a plot that you are going to love? Well, the first step is to figure out what you love already. Grab a notebook and a pen and make a list of all your favourite stories. Your favourite books, movies, TV shows, plays, musicals, anything that has a story that you love. Then I want you to sit down and figure out what it is you love about those stories and why. Who are your favourite characters? What are your favourite genres? And most importantly, what are your favourite tropes? Now, while it's great to write in a genre that you love, I'd say it's more important to base your novel, or at least certain key plot points of your novel, around tropes that you absolutely love. To give you some examples of what I mean, I'm going to tell you about some tropes that I personally love and cannot get enough of. The first trope I love to see in fiction is reluctant enemies. These characters are usually either best friends or siblings or parent and child who through some kind of misfortune end up becoming mortal enemies by the end of the story. Some great examples of this are Vi and Powder from Arcane League of Legends, Rhaenyra and Alicent from House of the Dragon, and Moses and Ramses from The Prince of Egypt. Let's look at the Prince of Egypt as an example. In most adaptations of the story of Moses, like the Ten Commandments, Moses and Ramses are depicted as being enemies or at least rivals from the very beginning. But in the Prince of Egypt, not only are they raised as brothers, but they are also best friends. They're inseparable, they do everything together, they make each other laugh. So when Moses returns years later and says, "Let my people go," and Ramses says, "But they make such pretty pyramids. You understand how hard it is for these two people to fight against each other. They both still love each other, they still see each other as brothers, but they are fighting for something more important than themselves. Moses is fighting for the freedom of the Hebrew slaves, and Ramses knows that the greatness of the Egyptian empire depends on those slaves, and without them it will crumble. So let's come up with a plot based around the premise of reluctant enemies. Let's say two identical twin princes are mixed up at birth by a careless midwife who places them both in the same crib, so no one is sure which is the firstborn. The king decides that they will rule the kingdom together after he dies, which seems fine at first because they both get along really well and are more than happy to share power with each other. But as they grow, their values and morals begin to shift. Let's say one of the brothers is incredibly traditional, whereas the other is more forward-thinking. Maybe one takes after the father and the other takes after the mother. Maybe they both fall in love with the same woman and that creates some hostility. Maybe one brother wants to go to war with another country and the other wants to make peace. Ultimately, while they are both good people who love each other very much, their clash in values and inability to compromise eventually leads to civil war. How does the story end? I don't know. Maybe they both eventually make peace, maybe the war only ends when one of them dies, maybe they both die. I love a good depressing ending. Anyway, let's throw that out there as an adoptable and look at some other tropes. Another trope I really love is the good guy from an evil family trope. This one you've probably seen a lot. Basically, there is an evil family that goes around doing evil things, and there is at least one member of that family who is genuinely a good person and who is torn between loyalty to their family and just generally trying to do the right thing. Some examples of this would be Tyrion from Game of Thrones, Prince Zuko from Avatar: The Last Airbender, and Eponine from Les Miserables. Tyrion is a particularly tragic example because he is loyal to his family. He becomes the hand of the king or head advisor to his insufferable brat of a nephew. He leads troops into battle even though he can't fight for shit. He knows his family is awful and yet he does so much for them. And even after everything he does to prove his loyalty, his family, or at least the majority of them, are not loyal to him. They disregard him and despise him just because he is a dwarf and his mother died in childbirth. Eventually Tyrion does turn his back on his family, but it's not even because of how evil they are, it's because they completely betray him and essentially sentence him to death. Sorry, spoilers, I should have said. To be fair, how many of you guys haven't seen Game of Thrones already? Anybody? No? Thought not. Moving on. Anyway, let's come up with another adoptable plot based on the theme of the good guy from an evil family. Let's go with a mafia family for this story, an extremely rich and powerful drug cartel where the men are all involved in the family business and the women are just spoiled and spend their days wandering around high-end retailers spending all their husband's money. Now, let's say there's a daughter in this family who knows that her father and brothers and uncles are all involved in the cartel, but just doesn't really say anything because she loves her family and doesn't want to get them in trouble. Now, she ends up falling madly in love with this really nice guy. They are absolutely perfect for each other. The only problem is he's a cop, and her father isn't too happy about the relationship. He is convinced that the man is only dating his daughter to try and get leads on him. Now, the daughter tries to reassure him it's not like that at all. He had no idea she was the daughter of a mafia boss when they met. He's not even in narcotics, he's in homicide. But the father doesn't believe her. He is convinced that this guy is out to get him, and one day the girl's boyfriend just disappears. She confronts her father about it and he's like, "Aw, your boyfriend ghosted you? What a shame. Nothing to do with me. Don't know anything about it. Bye-bye." But the daughter knows her father is lying. She knows that her boyfriend didn't abandon her and that in all likelihood her father had him killed. She is devastated and she is angry and she wants revenge. So she teams up with her boyfriend's partner and together the two of them try to prove that her father is responsible for her boyfriend's murder. A very different trope that I really enjoy is the last man standing trope. This can be seen in stories like The Hunger Games, Squid Game and Battle Royale. Stories where lots of players enter a game and only one survives. Now, while I do love The Hunger Games, I'd say the whole last man standing trope kind of falls flat in the book because the book is written in first-person perspective from Katniss's point of view, so who do you think is going to win? I'll give you 3 guesses. While there is a lot I like about first-person narrative, it definitely defeats the question of whether or not the character is going to survive. Squid Game and Battle Royale do this trope in a way that I prefer. You do see parts of the story from multiple different characters' viewpoints, but still the stories do have some clear main characters who you kind of expect to be the winners. What I would really like to see is a last man standing story where the readers genuinely have no idea who is going to win. So let's come up with an adoptable for that plot. Most of the last man standing stories I've seen have been either modern or dystopian, so let's go with historical. Let's make it an epic Roman gladiator showdown. Some crazy emperor or another decides to throw a year-long celebration of gladiator games, gathering the greatest and most promising warriors from all over the world in a tournament where ultimately only one warrior will survive. So there needs to be a lot of main characters, all of which have a good chance of winning and all of which have different readers rooting for them. Let's say there's a scarred old war veteran who is a sort of quiet lone wolf character that just wants to get back home to his family, a guy who's really friendly and jokes with everyone because he feels like they are all in the same boat, and since most of them are going to die soon, they might as well enjoy the last few moments of their life. A slave woman who despises all men because of how poorly she's been treated, but has a soft spot for other women and eases up around them. A bloodthirsty psychopath whose only goal is to kill as many people as possible. Maybe a rebel who wants to try and rise up against the nobles and rescue the other gladiators in some kind of valiant escape attempt. Let's say there's a good 10 to 20 main characters and any of them could ultimately be the winner. Now, that story on its own could be fun, but how about we add an extra layer of uncertainty? What if the author decides which characters survive each battle by drawing their names out of a hat? That way, the readers will not even be able to guess at which character is going to be the winner, because even the author won't know who the winner is going to be until the very end of the story. It's a little bit out there, I know, I just thought it was a fun idea. And the last trope I can think of that I really love is the evil protagonist trope. A story where the main point of view character is a straight up villain. Maybe they start off as a good guy or an anti-hero, but by the end of the story they are definitely a full-on villain. I'm talking about characters like Tony Soprano from The Sopranos, Walter White from Breaking Bad, Arthur Fleck from Joker, and Humbert Humbert from Lolita. Heroes are good and all, but I don't always want to see the hero story. Sometimes I want to see the villain's story. I want to see their fall from grace. I want to see why they are the person that they are. And to be honest, even though their actions are reprehensible, I often find myself loving and sympathising with villainous characters more than I do with the heroes. Not you, Humbert Humbert. We don't like pedos in here. As for adoptables, I'm afraid you don't get one for this trope because that is the plot for the story that I'm going to be writing for NaNoWriMo. I'm working on a very grim, dark kind of story where the protagonist gradually devolves from being a tragic hero to a reluctant villain. You guys feel free to write your own evil protagonist stories, but I'm not giving you this one, it's mine. So those are a few of my favourite tropes, but the important thing is, what are yours? Have a think about it, figure out what kind of stories you enjoy the most. Do you like chosen one stories, where one individual is destined to save the world from the forces of evil? Maybe you're into redeemed villains, or tragic orphans, or magical MacGuffins with mysterious powers. There's vengeful ghosts, genius detectives, hidden treasure, talking animals, time machines, unwinnable battles, magical doors to other worlds, long-lost families reunited, and of course the classic forbidden love, Romeo and Juliet, star-crossed lovers, overdone cringe. But Demetrius, it will never work between us. I am but a poor, lowly servant girl, and you are a sexy prince, vampire, werewolf, fairy, dragon, alien, android, zombie, who also happens to be a billionaire that constantly buys me expensive gifts even though I keep telling you not to. Somebody write that, I guarantee it will make millions. So that is your homework for today. Have a think about all your favourite books, movies and TV shows and figure out what your favourite tropes are. If you haven't yet thought of a plot for your story, then decide on a plot that is based around one or many of these tropes. And if you already have a plot in mind, then figure out how to incorporate some of your favourite tropes into the story that you are already working on. In tomorrow's video, I am going to be talking about genres, because once you have figured out the perfect plot for your novel, you are going to need the perfect genre to fit it into. What genre will that be? Does it only need to be one genre? Maybe you've already chosen a genre for your novel and you're starting to think, is the plot that you're working on right for the genre that you've chosen? Perhaps you should think about changing it. But anyway, that is it from me for today, guys. Feel free to leave a comment letting me know what plot you have in mind for the novel that you're working on for Nano. I'm really excited to see what you guys have come up with, and I promise I won't steal your ideas. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to keep following my Preptober vlog, and I will hopefully see you tomorrow for the next one. Hey guys, it's Avery from the future again. Not a whole lot to say on this video, since I mostly just talked about my own personal advice for creating a plot, but at the beginning of the video I did suggest that everybody look at the NaNoWriMo prep page and look at the advice and the resources that they offer. That advice still stands. I still think that the Nano Prep page has a lot of very helpful resources, but for anybody who just doesn't want to visit the NaNoWriMo website at all, I will also link some other websites and articles that give advice about creating a plot for your novel. Hope all this helps, and hope I see you tomorrow.